Hello?
Yeah, you guys are hearing, right?
Yeah, here.
Okay. So, so when I say Hyperion, it is basically a multi-dimensional database, and we will see what is the difference between the two-dimensional databases or RDBMS systems and the multi-dimensional databases. Okay, but for now it's like a multi-dimensional database, and now it is one of the data warehousing tool. Okay, so when I say means how exactly this Hyperion is being related to the data warehousing. So under the data warehousing, when I say data warehousing is a pool of data, or it's kind of warehouse where all the data will be stored, and whenever it is being required by the source systems are being transferred in such a way that it can be used in multiple target systems. So that is called as the data warehousing or data warehouse. So it's simply a collection of data where the data will be stored. That kind of location is called as data warehouse. So now we will see how exactly this Hyperion or our Hyperion is being related to the data warehouse. So when I say data warehouse will have basically these four specific categories. Okay, so the first category would be ETL, which is extraction, transformation and loading. Okay, so that is the first part of the data warehousing. So under this ETL tools, we have several tools like Informatica. Our best example for this ETL tool is Informatica. So what Informatica will do? Informatica is like extract the data from a source and then transform the data in a specific format which is being read by the target systems, and then finally it will load the data into the target systems with some kind of cleansing action. When I say cleansing, is like making a transformation so that it will be suitable for the target systems. So that is what the ETL will do. And second part is OLAP. So when I say OLAP, it is online analytical processing. So it doesn't contain any of the database, but just that it will it will try to connect, or it will try to extract the data whenever it is being requested. So it doesn't contain any database, but just that when you need any information from a system, okay, so then it will try to extract the data and it will gives you the output in the form of some kind of report. Okay, and then we have the third category, which is most important category of the data warehousing, which is BI. BI stands for business intelligence. So it is used for identifying the loopholes of the business, and then it will identify the characteristic of your business, and then finally it will try to give you some kind of it will gives you some kind of feature intelligence so that it will be useful for our growth of the business. So that's how this BI will be useful, and it will contain its own database, which is very much powerful database. Yeah, and then with the some additional characteristic of the business intelligence. So which will be used for driving your business successfully for getting better profits. So the example for it is Oracle Hyperion and as well as MSBI. Okay, so that's the reason we were discussing about this data warehousing. Why? Because we need to know in which specific category of tool our Hyperion is being co-located. So now our Hyperion is being co-located in data warehousing, and that too under BI section of the data warehousing. Now if you go for the fourth and the final category of the data warehousing, it is ERP. So ERP is basically used for doing the or planning your organizational assets. Let's say for example, if you are running some kind of factory, okay, so if you want to plan your man, material and as well as money, so you can start using some kind of small ERP tools such that you can try to improve or you can try to minimize the losses of your company, and then so that you will this ERP will be used for achieving the goals with the less or with the minimization of your work. Okay, so best examples for this is SAP. So SAP is the best example for the ERP tool, and in SAP also there are several modules based on based on the company's requirement. There are several modules which are being in the market, which we can use it for our benefit of the organization. Okay, so that's how we were discussing about, or that's where we were discussing about relation between the data warehousing and the Hyperion. Now we'll go for what is multi-dimensional database and what exactly the difference between the multi-dimensional database and why we need multi-dimensional database systems. Okay, so we'll see all these things. So when I say multi-dimensional database is like our data will be stored in the form of cells and blocks. Okay, so if we take a simple example, this diagram will represent the multi-dimensional database, or it is one of the cross section of the multi-dimensional database. Okay, so when I say multi-dimensional database, here there is no limitation for your here there is no limitation for like in RDBMS, where you need to store the data in x-axis and y-axis, or you need to store the data in the form of rows and columns. But here we don't have any limitations. So if you can observe this simple example, all the data will be stored in the form of cells and blocks. Okay, so if you can see here, if you can see or if you can simply observe this example, we have multiple axes we have, right? So we have different periods in our rows with the combination of different products here, and then here we have, if you closely observe, here we have several chart of accounts which are being categorized here, right? And then at the at the y-axis or at the z-axis, we have even regions which are being collocated. So that means there is no limitation for your database, or unlike the RDBMS systems, there is no limit for your dimensionality to be stored. Okay, right? So now we'll see a simple example how, we'll see a simple example why exactly we need multi-dimensional database and why not a RDBMS systems. Let's say, for example, let's say simple example, if you go for some kind of supermarket or for any company, or if you take a small retail store or any kind of small factory, so they will be producing some kind of products, right? So in that, so they will be, once they produce the products, what they will do, they will sell the products, right? So in our example, let's say if you go for some kind of a small retail where you went for buying a milk packet, let's say milk packet or each rate of each milk packet is, let's say for example 10 rupees. Okay, so if you purchase 2 or more, let's say if you purchase 2 milk packets, then the rate would be 20 rupees. So just what is important for us, just that we will be just paying 20 rupees and then we will be getting the 2 milk packets, and then we will be consuming that milk packets, right? So nothing is important for us, just that we need 20 rupees money and then we need to pay it and then we need to consume it, right? But as a company or as a producer of the particular product called milk or particular product or any product, so there are several parameters which will be helpful or which will be needed for a company to maintain some kind of system, or in order to store data they need several factors to be considered, like what is the sales price of the product, and then what are the expenses that are being incurred while producing that kind of product, and at the end of the day what is the motto of doing a business? You need to get better profits, right? And then, so in that process, if you don't track the, let's say for example, for any retail store, there will be some 100 customers, or there will be some 100 transactions which will be done on daily basis. And companies, nowadays companies are not co-located, so they are being geographically located. So in that case, for every store, you need to trace out all the transactions which they have done on any day at any point of time. So in order to track all those things, you need to maintain some kind of database systems, right? Which will store all your transactions, and then whenever it is required, or whenever you want to see the last month data, or whenever you want to see last year data for a particular store, let's say for example Martali store, or in a Bangalore, let's say for example some Kukatpalli store in Hyderabad, right? So whenever it is needed, you can able to fetch the data from the database, and whenever it is required, you can able to do some kind of analysis, right? Because, or you can analyze your business by seeing all the transactions of your all the transactions of your stores, which has done for all the months, for all the regions, and then for all the accounts or set of accounts. Let's say for example, for production of a milk, there will be several accounts like sales price, expenses, and then gross margin, right? So there will be several accounts which you need to take into consideration in order to get, or in order to arrive at the analysis of the business, right? So for that company, for to understanding all these things and then controlling your business, right? Based on your store, or based on your, let's say based on region, or based on month wise, or based on year wise, you need to store all these things in a particular database, right? So if you go for, what happens if you go for relational databases? So for a combination of, let's say for example, combination of a store plus month, you need to create a database in RDBMS systems, right? So if you go for this simple example, you may need to have, or you need at least 4 to 5 databases in order to maintain a data in the RDBMS systems, or let's say Oracle or SQL Server systems. But when you have a complex solution like Hyperion, you could able to store the data by using single database, right? So that's where this multi-dimensional database is getting more demand in the market, and because of the powerful nature of the query, or powerful querying nature, that means within less time you can able to pull the data, and as well as you can able to perform several calculations on the database as per our business requirement. Okay, so that's the reason this multi-dimensional database is getting more demand in the market. So if we take the example, right, because for any kind of business you need accounts, and then you need a kind of, let's say for example, periodicity, because every month or on monthly basis your calendar goes on changing, right? So for that to maintain a kind of track record, you need all the months to be taken into consideration, and then you need a kind of region, or I can say a region or entity of, because nowadays business is not being located at a single location. So now because of this globalization, all the business is now globalized. That means your business will be located in different regions and entities. So that also you need to capture that kind of information also. So for that you need to take region, and you need to store the data by month wise or period wise, and based on the production of your products. You need to maintain the data of your products, and as well as if you want to improve your business, you want to analyze your business. That means, let's say for example, in the year 2016 we are getting 20,000 rupees as the profit, and let's say for example, if you want to achieve more in the year 2017, so what you should need, right? So that all will goes to planning or predicting the future, or it's like a budgeting your organization, right? So there will be different scenarios which you need to take care. Let's say for example, if our business is going in this space, then in the next 5 years we will be achieving 200% more of our profits whatever we are achieving now, right? Because now companies, means what is the motto of companies? The motto of companies is to increase their profit and as well as to remain competitive in the market, right? So these are the two mottos of any company when they are doing any business. So for that you need to understand the current business, and as well as you need to plan for future businesses or future business growth, right? So in that case you may need to take out several business parameters like accounts, region, month and period, product, and then scenario. So when I say Hyperion or when I say multidimensional database, so all these parameters are most important parameters such that your business can be analyzed, which will help you for the growth of your business. So those parameters are called as dimensions. Okay, so dimensions are nothing but major elements which will describe your business or which will describe the client business, right? So without these major elements we can't describe our business, and as well as we can't be able to store the data in a database. Okay, fine, following it?
Yeah, following.
Yeah. So now what we have seen, what is the relation between the multidimensional database and what is the relation between data warehousing and as well as Hyperion, and then we have seen what is multidimensional database and why we need to go for multidimensional database, why not we go for RDBMS systems, right? We have seen that, right? Now we'll go for some of the key features or benefits of the Hyperion. Okay, because as I told, once you are going for any tool, there should be some kind of extra benefits that should be needed, right? So that kind of what are the key elements or key features which will be or which will lure your business is like, let's say for example, it is having the integration with existing infrastructure, right? So when I say integration with existing infrastructure, that means this Hyperion can be integrated with current business infrastructure, because nowadays also if you take some kind of analysis, at least 50% of companies is doing their business or they are using Excel or Microsoft Excel as a medium to do their business, right? So in that case, this Hyperion or all the business users are very much familiar with Excel or Microsoft Excel, right? Now this can be, or our Hyperion can be integrated with the existing Excel environment, or this means we can able to make a connection from the Excel environment and still plus the database features. So as I told, data can be stored in multi-dimensional ways, or there is no limitation for your database to be data to be stored in your database. Like you can store data in X, Y, and Z axis, right? So that means it can be integrated with your Excel plus the database, right? And this Hyperion will always having the to and fro connection with your RDBMS systems. Okay, and then data integration can be possible in Hyperion. That means you can always pull the data from the relational database systems, and you can always push the data from Hyperion to other target systems like e-business, right? So e-business is a system which will maintain all these things, and then from e-business you can make out a connection and you can pull the data, and as well as you can push the data. Okay, and because of this server and database, ease of the server and database maintain administration, this is one of the key feature which will be beneficial for us to go for Hyperion. And all our Hyperion applications are web-based applications. That means when you have an internet connection, you can able to make out a connection, and then you can able to use this environment even wherever you are being located. Let's say for example, if you are located in some Hyderabad location and client is located in some other location, let's say for example Bangalore. So without meeting the client, still by using the web-based environment, you can able to use Hyperion, and then you can able to demonstrate or you can able to develop the Hyperion system. Okay, and because of the key powerful, or I can say powerful querying nature. When I say querying, it is the ability to perform calculations or the business required logics on the particular database. So that is called as the powerful querying nature. So in Hyperion, you can able to write calculations and as well as some kind of business logics which are being needed for our business, so that client will be happy to use this kind of systems. And we have one more feature called write back security, wherein you can able to lock and send the data by using Excel or Microsoft Excel. We can able to make a connection, and then we can able to lock. That means you can able to pass the data from Excel, or whenever it is needed, you can able to see the data, which is called as write back and security. Okay, and ease of development. When I say ease of development, when you know the system better, then you can able to design a system based on the client requirement, which will be useful for doing the financial and as well as analytical business solutions. Okay, so these are the some of the key features which will be there for our Hyperion, such that Hyperion can be used very much rapidly, or it is now getting so much of demand in the market. Okay, so when I say means now we'll go for when is being Hyperion invented, and then who had acquired it, and then finally what are the versions currently we are using. We'll see all these history about Hyperion. So Hyperion was invented by Hyperion Corporation in some late 1990s. Okay, and because the whole idea of inventing Hyperion is to make the difficult or make it easy for the Excel users, because any kind of startup company will use Excel add-ins, or I can say they will be using Microsoft Excel, right? For they will be maintaining some kind of calculations and then macros. So all these things will be maintained in the Microsoft Excel. But what this Hyperion Corporation did is in late 1980s or 1990s, they have invented some kind of software which will be integrated with our Excel add-ins, or which will be integrated with Microsoft Excel. So that's the reason the first invented software for our Hyperion is Hyperion S-Base. So when I say S-Base, S-Base stands for, okay, so extended spreadsheet database, right? So that means it is been an extension of your Microsoft Excel itself. Plus, that means it is like a Excel plus DB. So that is called as the S-Base. So this is the first software which they have invented, or which the Hyperion Corporation has invented, and then later they have invented planning and as well as reporting softwares also. But to be in originality, they have started for the sake of removing so much of the user-friendly Excel, and then from there they have integrated several softwares with our Hyperion. Okay, and then what happened in late after 2005, they started discussion. Oracle started discussion with Hyperion Corporation, and they have acquired the software, and then from there it started calling as Oracle Hyperion. Okay, and Oracle Hyperion is one of the BPM tool. When I say BPM tool, it is Business Performance Management System tool. Nowadays it is called as EPM system, which is Enterprise Performance Management System. That means it will look out, or it will try to measure the performance of your company or performance of your organization in the form of generating some kind of reports, and based on those reports the management will take the several decisions so that it will finally add to the benefits of your organization. Okay, so as we discussed, this is the multidimensional database example. Okay, now in our Hyperion, basically there are three categories, or on a broad level we have basically three categories. The first one is Oracle Hyperion S-Base, which is the database of, or the core database of our Hyperion. Okay, because when I say this is the database for our Hyperion, and on top of that we'll have Oracle Hyperion Planning. So planning is simply a kind of predicting the future. So by using Oracle Hyperion Planning, we will be doing a planning for the future years, or we will be doing the planning and forecasting for the coming years, or for the next generations, you can say. Okay, and then we have the one more thing called as Oracle Hyperion Financial Reporting, which is like a graphical user interface tool which will be used for developing some of the sophisticated reports which will be given to the management in order to take the decisions, or in order to take future course of actions with respect to the organization. Okay, so these are the some of the components that we can see anywhere when we go for the Hyperion Planning or Hyperion S-Base. Clear, guys? Okay, cool. Yeah, so as I told, this is the history of the Hyperion, how exactly this has been converted into Oracle Hyperion. Okay, and currently we were using, so currently we are using, the latest version of it is 11.1.2. 2.4, okay, which is the latest version which the Oracle released now. So it started from 6 version, 7 version, 9 version, and then 11 version. Okay, so but Oracle started from 9 version. Yeah. Now we will see. Yeah. So with respect to course, what are the things that we are going to deal is, we are going to deal S-based, planning and financial reporting, which would take almost 45 hours of time. Okay, if you go by 1 hour on each day. Yeah. And now we will see what are the topics that will be covered as part of the curriculum. Let me open the curriculum. Yeah. So if you see the curriculum, we'll have these kind of topics that we are covering as part of our training. Okay, so which is for S-base. So S-base will have these course contents. Okay, so how to create an application, or what is an S-base on depth level, and then how to design the applications and databases. And once you design the applications and databases, we will be discussing about what are dimensions and what are the different standard dimensions and why we need dimensions. And then finally, once we design the dimensions, we'll be building the metadata. Okay, and then once we build the metadata, I can say, yeah, so when I say metadata, or there are some building blocks for our application, so that we'll see that we call it as metadata. So and then we'll be loading the data. So for that, what I should do is, I should what I can say, I need to take you through the life cycle of our Hyperion. Okay, so when I say Hyperion, or when I say any software, every software will have a life cycle. Or whenever you are designing anything, whenever you are designing any kind of software, right, so you need to follow some kind of software development life cycle, which is called as SDLC, right? So for that, what we need to do is, in our Hyperion we have several steps in our SDLC, right? So first, you will be, or we will be doing the requirement gathering, and then we will be designing the database outline. Let's say, for example, as I told in the simple example, so let me take you through the simple example that we discussed, right? So if we take out the simple example of this, like a milk production company, okay, so for that we need this region, scenario, product, month or period, and then we need chart of accounts, right? So all these will contribute, or all these will define your business. So without these elements, you can't describe the business. So in the requirement gathering phase, or whenever you go for the requirement gathering, or as a principal consultant or architect person, when you go for the requirement gathering process, you need to first analyze the business, and then finally you need to determine what are the key elements of your business. Or once you get the key elements of your business, that is being captured into a multidimensional database, like the way we have seen this example, right? So that kind of process is called as analyzing the business and plans. That is called as, in simpler terms, that is called as requirement gathering. And then, so once you gather the requirement, you need to keep them into a kind of database, right? That means you need to keep all these things into some kind of database or an application. So application is something that is like a solution of our Hyperion. So you need to capture them into some kind of application, and then you need to get, or you need to check for system requirement. Let's say for example your organization is having some 40 GB of data, right? So in order to capture that data, you need at least some kind of server capability or some kind of server parameters such that it can hold the database, right? So that kind of things is called as some system requirement check. So once it passes the system requirement, that means what kind of RAM it is needed, what kind of ROM it is needed, and what kind of server size it is needed. So there will be several parameters which will be there. That is called as like a hardware configuration, you can say. So that is called as system requirement check. And once you are okay with the system requirement check, you need to load the data into our solution such that you will able to see data in our application or in our solution, right? So once you have data in our database, and now you need to test the business, or you need to arrive at some kind of business solution or business logics. So that those are called as calculations. And once you get the calculations, or once you play with the data in order to get the logics. Let's say, when a simple example, giving the discounts and then giving the promotions, all these things are being some kind of calculations, right? So no company will announce any kind of discounts for the sake of getting, or any company will announce discounts for the sake of getting better sales, for the sake of getting better profits, right? So for that also, at the back end, they will do several calculations, and after several permutations and combinations, they will be arriving at some kind of business drivers, which is called as, say, calculations, right? And once these calculations are being tested, then you need to finally generate the reports. So reports, in the sense, it's a kind of some graphical report information which you will be showing to the management, or which the management will observe. And then finally these data or reports is being verified by all the key business stakeholders. So when I say key business stakeholders, that could be all the departments of your, or all the departments of any client. Let's say there will be HR team, marketing team, finance team, right? So all these things, because whatever they need, that has to be captured in the solution, right? So if the solution whatever you have designed is not been expecting or not been matching to the client expectations, then they will not use the system. So in order to use the system, they will verify all our system whatever we have designed, and then finally they will be, or will be getting a sign off for the projects, right? So that's how this SDLC process for our Hyperion go. Okay, now clear? So as I told, Hyperion is business intelligence tool, right? And this is the business performance management tool, okay? And this is one of the market leading financial and as well as analytical solution which can be used to store data, and which can be used for doing planning and forecasting, and as well as which can be used for generation of the reports also. Okay, so when you say Hyperion, or for, as like any software, our Hyperion will have some kind of architecture, right? So our Hyperion will follow 3 layered architecture. So when I say three-layered architecture, it is been classified as back-end, middle-tier layer, and as well as front-end layer. So when I say back-end layer, it is the core database of our Hyperion. Okay, so this is the database layer, which is the back-end layer of our Hyperion. So which is like, or you can simply say, this is the actual database of our Hyperion system. So which will have to and fro connection with our RDBMS systems or OLAP systems with by using ODBC native drivers, right? So drivers are nothing but adapters which will be acting as, or which will be useful for making connection between source and target. And then we have the middle tier server, middle tier services, which will link the database to your front end medium. So this client layer is called as front end layer, which will be used to see the, or which will be used to design the solution, right? Let's say for example, if you want to use any kind of applications, you need to first install that application on your mobile or on your laptop, right? So once you install the app, then once you have the internet connection, then you can able to use that application on your mobile, on your, or on your laptop. So in the same way, this client layer is like a front layer, front end medium, which will contain the, or which will be like a user interface in order to use the applications or use the solution. Okay, so that's about the Hyperion architecture. Yeah, so even you can see how this will function. So this is like a, when I say administration services console, this is like a front end medium where you can go and use the application, or where you can go and use the solution. Okay, so that's about the Hyperion. Yeah, so as I told, so it will follow some kind of SDLC, so that we have explained. Okay, so even benefits of the Hyperion also, yeah, that we have explained. So that's about the Hyperion. Yeah, and so as I told, this is the curriculum for our S base, and finally for planning also there is a separate curriculum for our Hyperion planning and as well as reporting. So planning is basically used for doing your budgeting and forecasting, or companies will use the planning solution in order to do the budgeting and forecasting for future period. So here there are several topics like what is a planning, and then how we will be, or what are the different interfaces for planning, so how to design the applications, and then how to design the dimensions, and then there are several topics like how to take the standard dimensions, attribute dimensions, how to load the metadata. So when I say metadata, it is a parameter, or it is a parameter which is explaining the data. Let's say in this example, if you take, let's say for example, for a month of January, okay, for a particular year FY16, okay, so for a region called India, and for a particular product called TV, right, and for a particular scenario called actual, let's say for example data is 300, right? So this is one of the smallest record that we can able to store in the database, right? So in that term, this entire data record terminology we call it as metadata. That means January FY16 India, TV and actual is the metadata. Okay, and this 300 element is called as the data element. Okay, so we'll see all these details in depth when we go for S-base and as well as planning. Yeah. Now, so we'll be keep on using this metadata very much often. So that's what I want to just highlight. So we'll be loading the metadata, and then we'll be loading the data also, and then we'll be seeing some of the currency applications also, because nowadays all your business is globalized. So that means it's not been restricted to a single location like India. So if you go for any companies, they will have business in different geographical locations. So in that case, we need some kind of multi-currency applications also, right? So because at the end of the day, even if you are doing business in several countries, let's say Africa, in Middle East, or in Asian countries also, you need to get the final reports in one final reporting currency. So for that, we'll be creating some kind of currency applications as well, and we'll be seeing how to convert those single currencies or multi currencies into single reporting currency. So we'll be seeing all these things, and then we'll be seeing how to calculate the data, right, and how to set the reports. Yeah, so we'll be seeing how to manipulate your data, how to create the business rules. So business rules are nothing but some kind of calculations, right? And then how to, we'll see some kind of approval process. Approval is something that, let's say for example, so you will be keeping some kind of budgets. So that budget data has to be approved. So nowadays it's a quite common scenario that every start of year, companies will be announcing what is the budget for next year, and at the end of the year, companies will show this is the profit that we achieved, right? So all these things will be they will be publishing by the approval process. Yeah. So all these topics we'll be seeing it. So what I'll do, I will just send this documentation to you so that it will give some kind of idea for you. Okay, clear? Okay, then fine. So from tomorrow we'll start. Okay, at the same time. Yeah, Raghu and Prasad.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, na? Clear na? అర్థమైందా?
Yeah, అర్థమైంది. మరి ఫస్ట్ ప్లానింగ్ వేసేసాను.
First S base అండి. S base is the base for anything.